a long time ago, when you heard me talking about how the used to be on the reservation in the very beginning that we couldn't leave the reservation. It's like a prison. We couldn't do many things. We were not allowed to eat the foods that our bodies were used to. So we only had to eat what America gave us, which was really bad food, very unhealthy. We got diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure, and geez, it's just not a good thing. It was also against the law to do our ceremonies and speak our language. So it was really a hard time. Yeah, it was really a hard time. And so there were little communities were established, and every community had kind of like a store, post office, and a church. And the church also served as the community building too, like for weddings and feasts and stuff like that. One day, in this one village, a wagon came because back then, everybody traveled in wagons. Nobody had cars. Yeah, everybody just had wagon, team and wagon. I hear this wagon pulled in to this community, and they stopped at the community building, and there were six people. They were really dressed weird. Yeah, you couldn't see their faces. The women had scarves covering their faces. They wore long dresses and those bonnets, the kind of caps that women wore back in those days in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And the men wore coats, and everybody was wearing gloves, and the men had hats, and they also had like a scarf around their face too, so you couldn't see who they were. They went inside the community building, um, and so the people were wondering, who are they? I wonder what they're doing. And then they heard singing. Yeah, they heard singing, and that really made them feel good because, before that, they couldn't do that because it was against the law. Yeah, so the Jesus song really sounded good. So they all went to the community building, and they were peeking in the windows. They're wondering, who is these guys? Yeah. So they went in there. They looked in there. Here they saw one man. He had a hand drum, and he was singing. And the woman was standing beside him, and she was singing too. And they were really singing a good song. But what really shocked them was that they were dancing in a different way that they'd never seen before. The men were on the right side, and the women were on the left. And the man and woman, they had their arms around each other, and the man's left hand and the woman's right hand clasped like this, and then they were doing this kind of a two-step, and the beat was like boom, 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 like that, and they were moving to that, and they saw they were moving. They would go three steps forward, two steps back, three steps forward, two steps back. They kept doing that. So they're slowly going around the room, yeah? And then at the break, when the drum goes louder, boom, 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 like that, they spin around in the circle. Yeah? And then they were like, wow, this is really different. They never saw dancing like this. They were just in awe. And they really thought, gee, this is nice. Yeah, this is really nice. People were just feeling good just to watch it. And then as the couple that was singing, they went out the door. And the other two couples, they followed them, and they were still dancing like that. And then the couple that's singing, they got on the wagon, and then the other two couples, they got in the back of the wagon in the carriage, and then the wagon began to pull away, and the people were just astonished. They were like, "Wow, what is this?" And then they said, "Who are they?" I said, "Let's go stop them and find out." So they ran after them, and the wagon was coming over. He just coming up on a hill, and when the people were getting close, the wagon stopped, and the people suddenly they just dropped. Yeah, they just dropped to the floor of the wagon, and the people were really scared. What happened? Did it look like they disappeared? Yeah, so they ran over there really fast, and they just saw clothes on the floorboards of the wagon, and then they noticed that the clothes are moving, and they got scared. And so, what is this? Yeah, so somebody lifted up one of the clothes, and here a rabbit, a big jackrabbit, jumped out. Everybody got scared because it happened just fast. And next thing you know, five other jackrabbits. These are really big rabbits. Yeah, they live on the prairie. These rabbits jumped out of the wagon. And they started to hop away really fast. They took off into the countryside, and the people were just astonished because see, in the Lakota way, rabbits that are involved with medicine to make you happy. They're involved with to make you feel good when you're feeling down. So people eat rabbits when they are going through a difficult time, and I don't mean financially. I mean emotionally. That there's something in rabbit meat that it interacts with your body when you eat it. It's an energy that goes inside your body, and it affects your emotions, and it boosts your emotions, so you feel better. Yeah. So rabbits are associated with good feeling medicine, feel good medicine. And see, at this time, this was a really hard time for Indians because it was basically against the law to be an Indian. Yeah, it was heartbreaking because they couldn't do anything, and they saw this new dance, and so right away they got that hand drum, yeah, and they got the wagon and horses, and they steered it back to the community building, and one of the men who can sing really good, him and his wife they took the position of that man and woman that were singing, yeah, that rabbit man and that rabbit woman, and they stood there, and then the rest of the people they formed into pairs, and they started doing that dance. And this man was a good singer, so he remembered the words that this rabbit couple were singing. So they started to do this, and they were doing this dance, and gee, they started to feel good. Yeah, they really started to feel good. Because even though they're going through a shitty time, and it's against the law to do all these things, it's basically against the law to be Lakota. This dance was making them feel good. Yeah, it really made them feel good. And so this was a medicine. This is how they got through a very difficult time with things and activities like this. See, the rabbits knew the people were hurting, so they came to give them this song and dance, so the people will rejoice, so the people will feel good. Isn't that beautiful? That we get something as lovely as that. So these songs are really pretty. Yeah, they're real pretty songs, and usually the topic is love. Yeah, and lots of times they're in English because we couldn't speak our language in those days. It was against the law, so they sang in English. And it wasn't a ceremony. Yeah, so then the authorities couldn't do anything. It wasn't a ceremony. They were speaking and singing in English. So technically, it wasn't breaking any laws. That's what the rabbits gave to us to help us get through that shitty time of the early 1900s. Yeah? That's a really cool story. I really like that one. I heard that long time ago, yeah? I always like to tell it because even when I tell it, it makes me feel good too. Oh gosh. Anyway, um, go to YouTube and look for rabbit dance, and you can see stuff like that. Yeah, because there are some videos of that um, of that kind of dancing. It's really nice. Yeah, and when you do the dance, it's really cool. I always do that at our when I do seminars. During the lunch break. After lunch, we always have the participants do that to wind down and to get ready for the afternoon session. And so we do that. Sometimes when the session's over for the day, they say, "Can we do some rabbit dancing again?" So I say, "Sure." So we break it out and do it again, yeah, because it makes them feel good too. So if you could ever find the opportunity to do the rabbit dance, I highly encourage you to do that. Even if you're home by yourself, grab a stuffed animal and really go at it, yeah. Seriously, you'll feel better for it. I swear. It's just the way it is. That's the power of the rabbit. Yeah, such a beautiful animal, such beautiful power, such beautiful medicine, wonderful medicine to help in our way of life so that we may live, so that we may all live.
rabbit dancing here, and I have a big giant stuffed tiger, and his name is Cool Guy. And Cool Guy and I were rabbit dancing here. Hey. Going all over the living room and the hallway. And it's a really big stuffed animal, yeah. He's probably the size of a 4-year-old kid. Yeah. Oh gosh. You heard me talking a lot about the boarding school and how um, there it was a very traumatic time, and as time went on, though, like in the 1950s and 1960s and so forth, it was still really hard, and children were still dying in these schools. But there were some instances that were kind of unique. Yeah, because one thing that natives are known for doing is adapting to adapt to your environment because you have to live. Yeah, you have to live. So you learn your environment as much as you can, and then just try to make the best of things. You see people who are in trouble, you try to help them as much as you can. So there were special bonds that were formed in these boarding schools. Yeah, so they tried their best to, survive in a living hell, basically, as you heard me explain earlier. Well, one time back during the summertime, this was probably in the 1940s or so, 1940s or 1950s, and these on this reservation, uh, they were having a powwow, and here, lots of times, you know, people come from other reservations, and people meet each other, yeah, and you might find your life partner, yeah, at a powwow, as they were nice events in those days, yeah. They weren't the big commercial, money hungry uh, events like they are today. But back then, it was nice because everybody got fed. You didn't. Today, they don't do that. Not many places do that today. Today, you have to go to a food stand and pay for food. Yeah. Or if they have a chow line, sometimes it's only reserved for the singers and dancers. So the public, well, you're just out of luck. Yeah, that's how a lot of powwows are today. But in the smaller communities on the reservation, those powwows are really nice. Yeah, because they are very community thinking, and everybody eats. Yeah, everybody eats, and they start the powwow whenever it's time. So it's not really a set time. Yeah, because sometimes the summer is really really hot. And so they might start the powwow a little bit later, it's like towards evening when it starts to cool down a little bit. Well, in the 1940s, there was this they just met at this powwow. And, the first time they saw each other, and they were like, wow. And in Lakota tradition, when you show interest in somebody, yes, you look at them, but when they look at you, you look away. Yeah, that's a custom. That's an old custom that comes from our creation story. Yeah, there was uh, the man who made the south direction. He was like a flute player, and he was really a good guy. He's the youngest of the four brothers who made the four directions. And there was a young woman helping their family, and her name was Wohbe. Now, some people say Wope, Woope. Those are all incorrect. Her name was Wochbe. Yeah, Wochbe was a really nice lady, and when she would feed this family, she would look at them, make eye contact and smile and give food to them and stuff like that. So those other guys thought, she was falling in love with them. That's what they thought. Yeah. But when she came to the younger brother, his name was Gaga. Okaga, I think his name was, yeah. Okaga. And um, when she came to him, she would look down. She would look on the ground, and she would, put some food in his wooden bowl. Yeah, she would put a little bit food in there, and here, that's for you. And then he would look down too, and he would say, "Thank you." You know, didn't even look at each other. And so the other guys would make fun of Okaha because they were saying, "Ah, she doesn't like you." Ha 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 ha. And they would fight amongst each other saying that she was in love with one of them. And sometimes in the evening, he would go up on the hill and he would take his flute up there and he would play these songs, love songs. But he was just composing, listening to nature, and he would hear a melody, and he would play play it through his flute. Meanwhile, down in the teepee, Wochbe is sitting inside, and she's listening, and she's crying. They're both in love with each other. Yeah. So a big adventure happens. It's going to take a long time to tell, but part of this, the result was uh, we got our medicine wheel, and the four directions were made. Yeah, the four directions were made, and we got our medicine wheel from this story. But in the end of the story, these two marry. Yeah, they marry each other, and they go to the south because he made the south direction. So they go to the south, and that's where they live. Yeah. Wohbe is also the same woman who brought the white buffalo calf pipe to the Itazipco Lakota people a couple thousand years ago. Yeah. So that's the same lady. So it's a really amazing couple. And so in the ancient way, when you're taught, concerning being a man and a woman, and a wife and a husband, a lot of times they use the story of Wohbe, and now he's called Itokaha. Yeah, that's his name now, Itokaha. And because Itokaha was a really good hunter, he always provided for the family, and he was very calm, he always thought before he spoke. Yeah, he always thought of what he was going to say before he spoke. So he doesn't just, shout out whatever he's feeling. Yeah, he always thought about what he was going to say before he said it. Yeah, he always thought about what he was going to say. He really thought about it good. So whenever he spoke, it really carried a lot of power, a lot of meaning, and you felt good because his decision, whatever it was going to be a good decision. He was a wise man. Yeah, and Wochbe was very similar in a way too. Yeah, and she in the things they did, that she did, was just a very wise woman, and this is a really nice couple. So when Lakota couples would get married, they would tell the story of Wochbe and Ogaha, Itogaha. Yeah, they would tell the story so that we remember. Yeah, we remember them and we honor them by living healthy lives. That we try to live as healthy as we can, helping one another, learning learning from one another. Yeah, that's how we love one another. Okay, now that's a really old one. Okay, now let me get back to this couple in the 1940s. This this young man and young woman, they met at a powwow and they followed the same example. Yeah, they would look at each other and and then if one of them looks back, the other one looks down. Yeah, they don't want to. They act like they're you know kind of not interested in each other. See, this is the old tradition. When you're got the hots for somebody, you don't look at them. It's just the opposite today. Yeah, today men just gawk. Yeah. Anyway, so this couple, they would come close to each other, but then they would avoid each other. Yeah, they would go out of their way to avoid each other. They'll walk right in front of each other just to turn their backs on them. They're showing each other that they're interested in each other. Yeah. So this young couple finally they they talked. Yeah. Uh, the last evening of the powwow, because they're usually 2 3 nights. Yeah. So we on the weekend. The last evening, which was Sunday, they finally talked, and then um, they walked around the dance arena for a while, and then they went. Yeah, they had to go back to their homes, and they didn't know if they were going to see each other again, but they got to talk to each other. They held each other's hands. They hugged each other, and they kissed each other, and they were so happy. Well, the next weekend was another powwow in a different reservation or a different community. And so he was excited to go, to hear some Indian singing and dancing and good food. And lo and behold, there she was. And they were so happy to see each other. Yeah. And it turned out this is what happened the whole summer. Every summer they went to a powwow, they ended up being at the same one because there's usually several powwows every weekend on in different locations. But this summer they kept running into each other at every powwow. And every time they were with each other, they fell deeper and deeper in love with each other. And then school was coming, boarding school. She because she was from a different reservation, she was going to um another school than his. Maybe she was going to Carlisle in Pennsylvania, and he was going to one in Haskell in uh, Kansas. There was a boarding school there. Today, that boarding school has been transferred, not transferred. It's been going through some changes, and now it's called. I knew it as Haskell Indian Junior College. Now I think it's called Haskell Indian Nations University or something. It keeps going through changes because it's growing all the time, which is really good. But in the very beginning, it was a boarding school. Yeah. And so let's say the girl went to Pennsylvania to this Carlisle Industrial Indian School, and the guy went to Haskell. Okay, so they're several hundred miles apart, and he was sad because he's not going to see her until maybe Christmas. It's a long time in teenage years. Yeah. And so the girl said, it was night, it was evening time, and the girl said, "Let's choose a star." So they were looking up into the sky, holding each other, and she said, "I like that one there." And he said, okay. So she said, let's call that our star. So he said, okay. So she said, when I go to bed at school, I'll look out the window and I will look at that star. And you do that too. So he said, okay. Yeah. He said, and then you say these words. You're so far away. You're so far away. When I close my eyes, there you are. There you are. So beautiful to me. So he said, okay, I'll say that. So when they had to go back to school, that's what they would do. Every evening, she would go to the window of her building and look for that star. And then he would do that too. Yeah? He would look at that star too. And so they promised each other to do this at a certain time. And this is the song they sang to each other when they were several hundred miles apart as they were looking at their star. They were singing this song.